Welcome back to Amateurish, the podcast. This is a mini episode where we take a look back at the top 25 recruits from high school to college.
In the 2020 class, which is, 4 years ago. And since it's the graduation time of year, these kids should be graduating college. So we figured, let's see where they are. Are they still in college? Are they in the league? Or are they going back for another year of college?
Yeah, I wanted to take a little analytical look, not very deep analytics, into these rankings, who they missed on, who they got right. And I was surprised when I looked at this. They got it pretty right.
Yeah, this is a pretty deep class in terms of NBA talent, for sure. And let's get into it, the top 25.
Okay. And this is from 247.
This is from 247, which I believe is the better ranking site. No offense to any others, but I think they do a good job with their composite and they go in depth. But yeah, it's
So the consensus number one was Cade Cunningham. And he went on to Oklahoma State, and now he's obviously on the Pistons. He's an interesting
prospect
kid to evaluate.
Yeah, especially with the transition to point guard at Montverde, which didn't seem like it was going to work out, and then it worked out. I think at the time this is a no-brainer, number one pick, national champ, 6'8". He got it all. We saw when he does play in the NBA, he's very good. His team's not very good, but yeah.
Yeah, he's very difficult to evaluate the pro aspect of it.
I think he's gonna be better. Like, I really like Cade Cunningham's game, and he's had some really good performances.
It's just, I always say, somebody has to score the points, and on a team that's not doing well, the Pistons, he's the guy. He's scoring the majority of their points, and I still don't know if he's if he's closer to Tyrese Halliburton or if he's closer to a scoring point guard.
I think he's a really underrated facilitator, but yeah, I hear you.
And we'll see in our re-rankings where he comes out. So number 2 on the list was Jalen Green.
Yeah, makes sense. Prolific prep. Went to the G League Ignite. Rockets. Started off a little rocky his first couple of years, but he really turned on the second half of this season. His future's looking bright, and in high school, the kid was a menace.
Yeah, very similar in some regards to Cunningham. He played for a really bad Rockets team, and he was putting up the points.
Well, I don't think they were as bad as the Pistons, but
no one has ever questioned his ability to score the basketball.
Yeah, it was more his efficiency, his shot
selection, and defense. I don't know if he's a 1. I don't think he is. I think he's kind of a smaller 2, but definitely a long-time NBA player
for sure
going forward.
Yeah.
3 on the list. Sorry, I have to refer to it from time to time. Was Evan Mobley.
Yeah. Went to USC with his brother. I think he was drafted 3rd overall too by the Cavs. He's been a guy where his rookie season was stellar, but we haven't seen the improvement that we kind of expected. He's kind of just been lateral, which is like, okay, after the rookie season, you're like, that's a great rookie season. But if that's your peak, you're like, well, he's good.
Yeah.
But you would expect him to take a bigger jump, particularly with his perimeter game, because his defense is great.
High floor, but what's his ceiling?
Precisely. I think he had the high ceiling. We just got you would think, with his body and his skill.
Yeah. He's the question mark in the Cleveland front court. You know what you get from Jared Allen. Jared Allen is
who he is. He's very good.
He's the rim protector, rim runner, rebounder.
Dunk the ball.
Mobley's different sort of cat because he can go on the out.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
He's more mobile.
Yeah. So the 4th kid is Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah. Also G League Ignite with Jalen Green. Went to the Patrick School in New Jersey. He was drafted 7th, I think, by the Warriors. He was another guy who, first couple years, he won a championship, but he didn't look, like a big contributor. But last year he turned it on, was a high teen scorer for them, and I expect I don't think he'll re-sign with the Warriors, but I think he will get some money coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, potential there, a great athlete.
Yeah, I mean, this year has been his best. And,
For sure.
And I think the Warriors are kind of figuring out how he adapts
I
to
think
their
there's
style.
some tension there with him and Steve Kerr because he made that public complaint,
Yeah.
and I thought he was going to get traded, but then he got the haircut and everything turned around.
So number 5 on the list is Brandon Boston.
Sierra Canyon. Then he went to Kentucky, and now he's on the Clippers, kind of at the G League, kind of on the team. This is kind of the first guy on the list that isn't a consistent contributor in the league,
Right.
even though he's in the league. He had a rocky season at Kentucky where he fell to the second round. Yeah, I don't know what he's kind of one of those skinny wings, put the ball in the basket, prototypical, but there's a dime a dozen in the NBA.
Yep. Number 6 is Zaire Williams out of Stanford.
Also went to Sierra Canyon.
Yeah.
He's and they kind of have had the
same trajectory.
Rocky season at Stanford. He's played a little bit more with the Grizzlies, but
I think he was a first-round pick.
He was a first-round pick.
And has had moments for the Grizzlies. There's certainly been time.
He's on the roster. He's not in the G League.
No, but I'm saying that he's had time to show it.
Yeah.
It's would be his 3rd season
now. It was his 3rd year.
But with all the injuries the Grizzlies have had, especially in the front court wing, he's had his opportunities. He's had a few moments, but his overall statistics are not overwhelming.
No.
I think he's slightly ahead of Brandon Boston, but not by much.
Yeah.
Number 7 is former Rookie of the Year, Scotty Barnes. Teammates with Cade Cunningham and
Montverde, Florida State. Came off the bench, still was the 4th overall pick by the Raptors. Rookie of the Year, like we said. He's a great player. He's an all-star this year, on a great trajectory. He's improving every year, especially his 3-ball, which was always a big question mark. His defense, his motor, but his 3-ball was a big question mark, and this year he shot well. He was shooting step backs.
Yeah, in the past I've compared him as a better shooting Ben Simmons because they're both very tall.
Point
guard forward.
Yeah.
It looks like Toronto's entrusted him with running the offense. And he certainly had a good season. The Raptors are not what they were.
But he's on a great trajectory.
Yeah, for sure. Number 8 is kind of the sad story here, Terrence Clark.
The late Terrence Clark. Went to Kentucky and then passed away before the NBA draft. So, we won't talk about his skills, but he was a great player. But, yeah, we'll move on to...
Yeah, now we start to get into the questionable. Moussa Cisse.
So this is the first guy we have mentioned that is still in college.
Yep.
And he's had a very interesting timeline. Memphis, Ole Miss, I think he might have been at Oklahoma State for a second, and now he's going back to Memphis.
Right.
He has tons of potential, like these rankings show. He's huge, good defender. I remember a couple games, I believe, at Oklahoma State, he had tons of rebounds. He's kind of like that guy. But just inconsistency with some injuries, his offensive skill set, questionable like decisions as to where at school, what fit. And it kind of shows both ends of the spectrum, where we have the first 7 guys in the NBA, and now we got still in college for your 5th year.
Yeah, and he's definitely not an offensive threat.
No,
he hasn't improved there at all. And is tied in the 247 rankings with Greg Brown, who went to Texas.
And is on the Trailblazers, but he's also a guy who's kind of at the end of the bench, G League. I mean, freak athlete. He's done East-Bays in game, which is ridiculous. But
can you even East-Bay?
No, I can't East-Bay. But also with his offensive skill set, there leaves some to be desired.
And there's a glut in Portland. I mean, you got Ayton, you got Robert Williams,
Grant,
all playing similar position.
Yeah,
I don't know what his trajectory is at this point.
Purgatory.
Yeah. 11th is Jalen Suggs, who we all remember from that shot in the Gonzaga game.
Drafted 5th by the Magic. Started off not so good, looking like kind of a bust, but really turned around this year by changing his game and what he was known for. Became a lockdown defender. Yeah. He's a great athlete, so it made sense. And was a part of that Orlando Magic playoff team this year.
And it's interesting, Banchero recently was interviewed, and he said, I don't want to be the facilitator. I don't want to run the offense. And he said, and he listed, hey, our team's core are Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Suggs. So he's highly regarded by
his teammates,
by Banchero.
Yeah, and I was really impressed by this season how he managed to spin the narrative.
12 is Josh Christopher.
Now this is an interesting case, and it kind of what I've been saying about Arizona State, how prospects when they go there hasn't turned out well. He was a bucket in high school. Was a bucket at ASU. The efficiency obviously wasn't as good. Drafted 2nd round by the Rockets and was waived actually this past year. He was part of their collection of young talent where they don't all see the floor. He spent time in the G League and he was waived. I think he can really score the ball, and I think he has an NBA skill set, but with how talented the NBA is,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Josh Christopher.
13 is an interesting guy, Jalen Johnson from Duke, and now on the Hawks. And he's been regarded, the Hawks are extremely high on Jalen Johnson.
I'm high on Jalen Johnson. Talk about an interesting trajectory. Great start at Duke, and then he left in the middle of the year to prepare for the NBA draft, which we have not seen that type of move. And it hurt his stock a lot because teams thought he quit on his team.
Yeah.
Drafted by the Hawks, didn't have the best start, but this year really emerged as their second option behind Trae Young. Big athletic wing with a guard skill set. Had some sick posters this year.
And he's a guy they really want to build around.
Yeah, and I can understand that, especially with Trae Young. They don't know if he can lead them to a team, and if Jalen Johnson keeps improving his trajectory, then.
And he's going to be on a team-friendly contract
for the next
2,
I think.
Well, it depends if he's 4 or 5, but then that first extension, he's not an All-NBA kid. He's not an All-Star.
No, he's going to be. They can keep him for a while.
Yeah, he's that's good for them. 14 is Caleb Love.
Another guy staying in college. Well, we just talked about him on our episode previously, where he is returning to college after being in the NBA draft, staying in Arizona. He is the funniest player in college basketball in terms of his shot selection. He's a bucket when he's on. We saw him in the UNC national championship run.
Yeah, he's a great shooter, scorer. Really fits a need for Arizona.
Yeah,
because now they have an inside-outside game.
If he can, which 4 years in, I don't know if this is going to happen, but if he can just manage to be slightly efficient, he could be drafted. But we shall see.
Yeah, he's kind of a smallish guard. He's not.
Yeah,
huge.
But his team kind of lived and died by his efficiency.
15 is Day'Ron Sharpe.
Yeah, Montverde, UNC on the Nets, solid role player.
Yep.
I think at this point in the rankings is when we're getting to guys who either could be in the NBA, and he's definitely, he's in the NBA. He's made a foothold for himself there. At 15th and is not like a guaranteed.
No.
So props to him, and he's good for what he is. He's a dunker. He's in a dunker spot. He's big. The Nets have been a little, in purgatory, mediocre. But him and Claxton are two young, decent players.
Yeah. 16 is Jaden Springer. The crop of Jadens out there.
Yeah.
Springer, I think, went to Washington. Tennessee. Okay.
Then he went to the Sixers, and now he's on the Celtics. And both times he hasn't really got an opportunity,
Yeah.
Which is kind of the downside of So he's 16 on this ranking, and he was drafted in the late first round, which kind of correlates. You're getting drafted to a good team, where your young players aren't going to get that opportunity, like if you were drafted to a sorry team. So he hasn't got an opportunity, but he's in the league. He's on the Celtics. He might get a ring this year. Who knows?
Yeah. But again, his NBA future is up in the air.
Yeah, but he's definitely a talent. Yeah, we'll see.
17 is Deshaun Nix,
who is he's an NBA player. Rockets fans will question that because did not have a great there. But yeah, G League Ignite. Then he was with the Rockets. He's now on the Timberwolves. And you may have noticed him watching all these Timberwolves games. He's always fitted up on the sideline, getting a prime seat in between the coaches and the starters on the bench. Some rocking some crazy designer. Not in the game though.
Yeah, if we're talking about your drip on the bench, you're either injured or not.
Not in the game.
Yeah, not in the game.
But he's in the NBA.
A lot of DNP CDs.
Yes.
For those of you who aren't basketball fans, did not play, coach's decision. Then 18 is Maker.
Yeah, this was a really crazy one because he went to an HBCU. Very highly recruited. He's big. He's a maker, so you know who they are. Went to Howard, and everyone was kind of in support of the move, trying to bring back to the HBCUs, but he didn't even have a good year there. I believe he's on the Raptors 905 G League, but he had been in the NBL a little bit, bounced around. That's one of the guys where the decisions really matter in terms of where you go. And we see that on some guys on the list. His decision to go to Howard, and then his decision to declare early instead of transferring, and then NBL, and then you have a 5-star 7-1 guy who's on the G League.
He's not, as far as I know, related to Thon Maker.
The Makers, though.
And he also doesn't have Thon Maker's karate skills.
Yeah, he has not kicked anyone in the face.
So,
if he did, that would be awesome.
We're not condoning it.
We're supporting it.
But it was dramatic. 19 is Keon Johnson.
Yeah, so I believe he's on the Nets. He was on the Clippers for a little bit. Tennessee, elite athlete, but also, a G League two-way type guy. Which is what we're seeing towards the end of these 5 stars. But, yeah.
And the next is Isaiah
Todd.
Right.
He also went G League Ignite. He's not. I think he last played for the G League Ignite. He spent a little time with the Wizards, but he's not on a roster anywhere right now.
Right.
Again, with the decision making, I believe if he would have went to college, we would see something differently. The G League path is good for some, not for others.
Right. Of course, that path is effectively gone.
Yeah, G League Ignite doesn't exist anymore. But the pro path,
yes, I believe Todd's overseas, if I looked him up. 21 is Bryce Thompson, the kid who went to OK State.
From Kansas.
Yeah.
Right. He was at OK State this year, wasn't that much of a contributor, which is surprising for, if you considering rankings.
Another kid's still in college.
And this is probably the Musa Cisse and Caleb Love, they're starters and big contributors, and we haven't seen that from Thompson really.
Right. And then 22 is I was surprised, Walker Kessler. I was surprised by how high he was ranked on this list because he didn't immediately have collegiate stardom.
And went to UNC, and then he went to Auburn, where he really found his groove. So it was a 2-year college player. Just finished his 2nd year in the league. He's a solid player, solid big man with Utah. He's on that FIBA team, which underperformed, but at least he was representing the country.
He was asked to play. And then you have 23, another kid who's still in college, Jeremy Roach.
Who was just transferred from Duke to Baylor, to the chagrin of many Blue Devils fans. A really good college player, especially with these later years with Duke, where he's been the leader of that team. And then with Baylor, they're going to be solid, so he's going to be a name. He's
a kid that I keep wanting him to show me what his elite skill is.
Yeah.
there are times at Duke when he absolutely grabbed the reins and he was the guy.
He was the leader of that team, I think, emotionally.
And also, he had some big scoring games, and then no.
Yeah.
And then it sort of disappeared. Like you said, a good college player.
Yeah.
I'm not devaluing him at all. Baylor's gonna, he's an asset to Baylor for sure. Especially bringing in VJ Edgecombe. 24 is Sharif Cooper,
who's first guy we have that is overseas. I believe he's in China.
I think Todd, but
he's in China. Was the first China guy.
Yeah.
He went to Auburn where he had that big thing where he wasn't eligible, and then he came and then took the SEC by storm. Drafted second round, then was really with the Cavs G League and Hawks G League. And then he went to China, which is he just won the championship over there actually. I think I'm really a big fan of Sharif Cooper and his game. It's unfortunate that he never really got the opportunity, like so many of these guys, but he's making that big bread in China, which what we see sometimes with the move is when Hoopers go to China, it's kind of like, okay, they tried to get in the NBA. Now they're going to look out for their family and secure the bread.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe this is him. He's saying, all right, I gave it my all at the NBA. I'm going to go be a pro and make real money.
Interesting choice. China versus Europe. You could play either place, clearly.
The money, though, is different.
It's different.
Yeah.
Here is the analytical portion. He's the smallest player on the top 25, barely 6 feet. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if his combine showed him a little under. And the hair. You don't see going forward and going back a few years. You don't see many guards his size in the league.
No, you don't.
Making a difference. And it's interesting he's here at all, but he had such a prolific high school career.
Yeah, he's one of the best high school players in the past 10 years, like in his resume.
And then the last guy on the list, Cam Thomas, who is an interesting story.
Yeah. LSU and then the Nets, where I swear he's probably the only bench warmer who's had 50.
Yeah.
He was actually behind KD and Kyrie, but then when they were hurt, he came in and had 50 on what Cam Thomas does. And then this year he had a bigger role, injured a little bit. And we saw early on in the season he was on fire, averaging like 27 a game. But then Cam Thomas, what he does is he has that stretch and then he gets inefficient. And regardless, he knows how to do one thing, and that is to put the orange thing in the red thing like no other.
Is the rim really red?
Yeah, the rim.
The orange thing and the orange thing. He does know how to do that. I compare him to a slower, bigger Tyrese Maxey.
I don't.
Has a mid-range game, maybe similar from the outside, but he gets to the line a lot. And so does Maxey. But we can agree to disagree on that.
We can agree on one thing is that he does not have a confidence in the shot.
No. But sometimes that's a good thing.
No, it's a good thing when he's on fire. So who's your top 5 that you would re-rank?
Okay, so going backwards.
So 5 to 1?
5 to 1.
Okay.
And we'll go player by player. Let me give you my honorable mentions first.
All right, I only have a 5, so.
Okay, well, we'll do it at the end.
You got your honorable mention. Go ahead.
So 5 is Jalen Johnson.
5 is Jalen Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily in what he's achieved to date, but his ceiling is so high and his progression level is really on a good track right now.
Yeah, I also have Jalen Johnson at 5.
Okay.
I was thinking Kuminga was my guy that I was like him or Kuminga, but I think he's more impressive than that.
Okay. So 4 is Evan Mobley.
Same.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna have the same list.
Well, no, I think here's where we're gonna differ. And look, these Johnson on my list is the lowest kid, 13th. So
yeah,
not a huge shakeup. For me, number 3 was Kuminga.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I have Jalen Green at 3.
Okay, Green was one of my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Again, not a kid based on what he's done so far, but on his trajectory up. The fact that he's now finally carved out a solid place in the Warriors rotation, which is extremely difficult to do. And they, even though his play style doesn't fit the Splash Brothers, the Warriors of past, they've now figured out, okay, here's how we can maximize Kaminga. Now he's coming up on extension pretty soon, so it's going to be interesting to see if the Warriors can afford him. But I'm really high on Kaminga.
So who's your two?
My two is Scotty Barnes.
Oh no, Scotty Barnes is number one.
Okay.
I have Cade at two.
All right, so we flip flop.
No, you can't. Come on now. Scotty is the best player. He's the only All Star. He's the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I had him two, not one. But
why don't you have? What's the difference there?
Yeah, I think Cade's floor is a bit better.
But Scotty is already above his floor. He's an all-star.
I mean, Cade has demonstrated it in stretches the ability to excel. He's the closest thing Detroit has to an all-star.
Yeah. Scotty is an all-star.
I got you. I understand. We could argue that. I was torn.
I like Cade Cunningham a lot, but I had to give it to the actual.
I got you. Now my honorable mentions were Jalen Green, Suggs, and Kessler.
Yeah, I agree with all those three. I didn't consider Suggs, but Kessler and obviously Green was on my list.
Now here's some of the interesting analytics. First of all, they got this right.
Yeah, all these dudes are for the most part legit.
Yeah,
there's an overwhelming majority of them are in the NBA.
Yeah, there's 10 that I think we could classify as NBA contributors. So I'm not saying you're on a roster. I'm saying a guy who contributes, plays all the time. The Cunninghams, the
starters, and the
8 guys I mentioned.
Yeah.
Plus Day'Ron Sharp, and there's one other that I'm drawing a blank on, but 8 or 9.
I mean, Zaire Williams.
And Zaire Williams, but he doesn't.
Yeah, you got. I mean, yeah, I agree with you.
He's
on the team. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to really fault them for having Boston and Zaire Williams 5th and 6th when they are actually.
Thomas.
And Cam Thomas, right. So it's hard to fault the evaluators when these guys are actually in the NBA. They just aren't really very accomplished NBA players. And I think they did an excellent job with the guards. Where these evaluators missed more frequently was on the kids 6'9" and above.
Yeah, which we've had discussions about this before where he questioned, how is this guy ranked so high when he doesn't have the skill set? And I said, well, it's because these rankings are kind of based on potential, and also if you're 6'10" in high school and you don't have a skill set, you're still going to be dominant.
Right.
So it's your high school resume as well.
Yeah, I think you see that in an interesting, corollary. The very solid 6'7" kid, the Tyron Stokes. I'm not saying, I'm just using his body type.
Yeah.
Who is so much physically more ready in high school. Then they have to adjust to college, and it's a lot harder.
Whereas the guards have to be solid, in high school. Even though they're going to be more athletic than their peers, of course, in high school, but their skill has to be sharp. Yeah.
Right off the bat. Now, so out of the top 25, there were 7 kids, 6'9" or above, and 3 they clearly hit on it, right? Evan Mobley, Kessler, and Day'Ron Sharp. Sharp was 15th.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at a draft list, if he's drafted 15th, that's probably he would go a little higher based on
in this
in the re-rankings.
You also have kids that are below,
right,
50s that could be.
Yeah, we didn't see who else was in that draft,
yeah.
Or Europeans or anything like that. So maybe that's kind of where he should have been drafted, around that.
If he's the 15th best player from the 2020 class,
in
the draft classes,
he should be there. So those 3 guys Kessler and Sharp aren't, quite in the same level as Evan Mobley, but Mobley was the third pick and the third kid on this list. But then you've got a lot of guys they missed. They missed on 4 6'9" or
Bigs.
above.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that sometimes the evaluators they lose perspective because you do see a kid in high school dominate because he's 6'10" and he's not facing 6'10" guys all the time.
Yeah.
Well, when you get to a Power 5 conference, other than Maker, you're facing 6'10" guys, or if not a 6'8" guy like Eric Dixon, who's a man,
24 years old.
Yeah. So you're all of a sudden matched up against your peers more. We see that a lot with Boston and Zaire Williams. Very athletic wings are going to excel in high school because, again, they're not playing the same guy.
Playing the same ball.
Right. And if you're not faced regularly with that level of competition, you're going to dominate. Sierra Canyon was an outstanding team. And those two kids showed out in high school, but then you saw their progression wasn't as fast. Their skills, their outside shot, things like that haven't come along. And there's, this is no disrespect. They're in the NBA, but they're struggling to maintain that foothold in the NBA. So it's a very interesting look back. Again, very surprised by how accurate it was this year. I think we're going to see in future, when we do next year, the 21, not as accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I think, they don't get it right every year.
Yeah.
They're paid to do this, but there's always the no names that come out of nowhere, and there's always the big busts. So
sure, 100%.
We shall see. But that's it for going to be it's going to be it for our mini episode. I hope you like this kind of change of pace we did. Not our normal type of episodes, but very interesting. And we'll see y'all on next week's episode.
And don't forget to like us, hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, and comment below if you would disagree with our rankings. Flip them around. Let us know what you think.
And if you want to sponsor us, we're always willing to listen.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Peace.